What if I told you some of humanity's greatest achievements are still hiding secrets that baffle modern science? From colossal monuments to lost civilizations, mysteries linger that could rewrite history. In this video, we'll journey through 10 of the most astonishing ancient enigmas, uncovering what we don't know about how the Great Pyramid was built without modern tools, who are the builders of Göbekli Tepe located in modern-day Turkey, who really carved the Indus script, and 7 more mind-blowing puzzles that still have archaeologists and historians baffled. Stick around, because number 10 will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about history. The first mystery on our list is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Imagine a structure so monumental, so precise, that even with today's technology, we would struggle to replicate it. The methods used to build the Great Pyramid of Giza remain one of humanity's greatest unsolved mysteries. To this day, modern engineers are still scratching their heads as they debate how 2.3 million massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 70 tons, were moved, shaped, and placed with millimeter precision. At its heart lies a maze of unanswered questions. Did workers employ a colossal straight ramp, an ingenious spiraling walkway, or perhaps even sophisticated water canals to haul stones into place? None of the surviving papyri, nor the remnants of the workers' camps discovered nearby, provide a complete blueprint. We do know that teams of skilled laborers quarried fine white limestone at Thera and heavy granite at Aswan, then floated these blocks along the Nile on large wooden barges. But once they reached Giza's plateau, how did they ascend the rising tiers without cranes or metal pulleys? One leading hypothesis envisions a giant straight earthen ramp built along one face of the pyramid. According to this model, the ramp would have to be extended and heightened in tandem with the pyramid's growth, ultimately rivaling the structure itself in scale. Imagine hauling a 50-ton block up a slope hundreds of feet long, using nothing but ropes, manpower, and lubricated sledges. Critics point out that such a ramp would leave a massive archaeological footprint, and yet, excavations have failed to uncover its remains. Another camp champions the spiraling ramp theory, a helical path wrapping around the pyramid's exterior, allowing workers to push stones up a gentler incline. Proponents cite reliefs depicting curved ramps in other Egyptian contexts. But again, no physical trace of this around the Great Pyramid has emerged. If this ramp did exist, it may have been dismantled and its materials repurposed in later eras, though that still leaves open the question of how craftsmen maintained straight edges and perfect angles while working on a twisting ascent. Then there's a daring water canal proposal. Could the ancient engineers have dug trenches around the base and partially flooded them, floating blocks on temporary platforms up to the construction site? Recent geological surveys have detected traces of ancient waterways on the plateau, suggesting the possibility of hydraulic engineering previously unrecognized. Yet no contemporary scroll mentions such an elaborate system, and skeptics argue that controlling Nile floodwaters with the necessary precision would itself be a monumental task. Perhaps most baffling is the pyramid's astonishing alignment. Its sides deviate from true north by only 1/30,000th of a degree. Modern surveyors can barely match that precision with lasers and GPS. Some theorize that the builders used the circumpolar stars by setting up a plumb line between 2 fixed points to establish true north. Others suggest that they employed a solar gnomon at zenith time. Each explanation carries merit, but none accounts fully for the consistency across all 3 large pyramids on the Giza Plateau. The suspense deepened in 2021 when cosmic ray muon scanning revealed previously unknown voids and corridors inside the Great Pyramid. These hidden spaces could hint at internal ramp systems. If confirmed, this would revolutionize our understanding of ancient Egyptian construction. But as of now, archaeologists are still interpreting the scanned data, debating whether these voids are passages, chambers, or simply structural anomalies left by centuries of limestone quarrying. What's clear is that the Great Pyramid was not built in a single stroke of genius, but evolved through trial, adaptation, and possibly multiple techniques employed at different stages. Perhaps the builders combined straight ramps for the lower levels, then switched to internal corridors as the structure rose, and finally relied on clever counterweights and levers at the summit. As we wrap up, consider this. Every new discovery tends to spawn new puzzles. Will future excavations on the plateau reveal chisel marks from vanished ramps? Might drones equipped with advanced sensors map tiny soil disturbances that betray hidden workways? Until such breakthroughs occur, the true construction methods behind the Great Pyramid of Giza will continue to captivate and confound historians, engineers, and dreamers alike. If this mystery left you awestruck, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more ancient enigmas. In our next episode, we'll journey to southeastern Turkey to unravel the secrets of mystery number 2. What is the purpose and who are the builders of Göbekli Tepe? Picture a hilltop ringed with massive stone pillars carved into life-size animals and abstract symbols erected more than 11,000 years ago, long before agriculture took hold. Göbekli Tepe stands as perhaps the oldest known monumental complex in human history, yet its true purpose and the identity of its builders remain one of archaeology's greatest riddles. Situated atop a limestone outcrop in southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe was first unearthed in the 1960s, but its significance only became clear in the 1990s when Klaus Schmidt and his team began systematic excavations. They revealed at least 20 circular and oval enclosures, each defined by towering T-shaped pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons. These stones are adorned with reliefs of snarling snakes, leaping gazelles, scorpions, and enigmatic humanoid figures, all painstakingly carved by hands that wielded only stone tools. The most immediate mystery is, who were these people? Conventional wisdom long held that complex architecture and monumental art arose only after societies settled into farming, producing food surpluses that freed a class of full-time artisans and priests. But radiocarbon dating of charcoal fragments from Göbekli Tepe's midden layers places its construction between roughly 9,600 and 8,200 BCE, centuries before the earliest known villages in the region. Its builders were hunter-gatherers, still dependent on wild grains and game, yet capable of mobilizing hundreds of individuals to quarry, transport, carve, and erect megaliths. Why would nomadic groups invest so much labor in a site with no signs of permanent dwellings? No hearths, no storage pits, no trash heaps typical of long-term occupation. Instead, Göbekli Tepe seems purely ceremonial, an ancient sanctuary where scattered bands gathered seasonally. Some scholars propose it functioned as a pilgrimage center, uniting disparate clans around shared rituals. The animal reliefs might represent totemic ancestors or cosmological beings, hinting at a complex spiritual belief system previously unimagined for pre-Neolithic societies. Another puzzle: how did they build it? Quarrying the local limestone and carving it into precise forms would have required coordinated effort, advanced knowledge of leverage, and sophisticated organization. Wooden logs may have served as rollers, while earthen ramps could have assisted in raising the horizontal lintels onto the upright pillars. Yet no ramps or scaffolding remnants have been found, leaving room for speculation that the builders employed ingenious but now forgotten techniques. Then there's the astonishing decision to deliberately backfill and bury the enclosures around 8,200 BCE, sealing their mysteries beneath tons of rubble. Some interpret this as a ritual closing of a sacred site, perhaps in response to shifting spiritual paradigms or environmental stressors like a regional climate downturn. Others suggest a pragmatic motive, covering unstable structures to protect them. Either way, the act of burial has preserved the carvings in remarkable condition, but it also ensures that future excavations must carefully peel back layers without destroying context. Recent studies of the surrounding landscape reveal that Göbekli Tepe was not an isolated sanctuary, but part of a network of contemporaneous sites scattered across Anatolia. Similar T-shaped pillars and iconography appear as far as the Euphrates, implying a shared cultural horizon among hunter-gatherer groups across the Fertile Crescent. This raises the question: was Göbekli Tepe the epicenter of a region-wide spiritual movement? And if so, what beliefs or myths bound these communities together? Despite decades of research, every discovery seems to spark new questions. Why are some animal motifs repeated while others appear only once? What significance lay in the precise geometry of each enclosure? Did different circles serve different ceremonial functions, such as initiation rites, funerary observances, or astronomical alignments? Göbekli Tepe challenges our assumptions about the dawn of civilization. It suggests that humans may have first come together around shared religious or ideological impulses, and only later turned to farming to support larger populations. As archaeologists continue to unearth and analyze artifacts such as stone tools, flint blades, and the remnants of wild cereal processing, the story of Göbekli Tepe slowly unfolds, yet its heart remains concealed beneath millennia of earth and enigma. If this mystery left you pondering the ingenuity of our ancestors, be sure to hit like and subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. In the upcoming episode, we'll tackle mystery number 3. What is the origin and meaning of the Indus Valley script? Imagine a civilization so advanced that it laid out sprawling cities with grid-like precision, engineered complex drainage systems, and traded goods across thousands of miles, yet left behind a written language that remains utterly indecipherable. The Indus Valley script, inscribed on thousands of steatite seals, pottery shards, and metal implements, stands as one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles. In this segment, we'll delve into the hunt for its creators, the debates over its linguistic roots, and why every breakthrough seems to raise 10 more questions. Archaeologists first discovered these tiny square seals, often no larger than a few centimeters, during excavations at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro in the 1920s and 30s. Each bears a sequence of short symbols, no more than a dozen at most, depicting abstract shapes, animal forms, and human figures. Over 4,000 unique signs have been cataloged, yet no bilingual inscription like the Rosetta Stone for Egyptian hieroglyphs has emerged to unlock their meaning. Was the script a full-fledged writing system encoding spoken language, or a set of emblematic marks denoting trade goods, religious rituals, or clan identities? Some scholars argue for a logosyllabic system, combining symbols for whole words with phonetic elements. Others propose a purely mnemonic or proto-writing function, used chiefly for administrative tagging. The brevity of each inscription suggests they may record only names, titles, or transaction codes rather than continuous prose or historical narratives. Then comes the question of linguistic affiliation. Tentative links have been drawn to Dravidian languages spoken in southern India, based on statistical correlations between symbol clusters and reconstructed Proto-Dravidian vocabulary. But these hypotheses rely on assumptions about sign values and reading directions that remain unproven. Other researchers see possible connections to early Indo-Aryan or even Munda languages. Without longer texts, phonetic clues, or grammatical markers, the debate remains at an impasse. Enter computational analysis. In recent years, machine learning algorithms have scanned thousands of sign sequences, seeking patterns akin to those in known languages. Some studies claim to identify recurring prefix and suffix signs, hinting at noun declensions or verb conjugations. Others caution that the short length of sequences and uneven distribution of signs make statistical interpretations tentative at best. Yet the promise of AI-driven decoding continues to galvanize researchers worldwide. Adding to the intrigue, many seals feature a single-horned bull or a unicorn motif beside the script. Were these purely decorative, or did they serve as pictograms representing deities, city-states, or merchant guilds? The seals have been found at distant outposts, from Mesopotamia to the Persian Gulf, implying that their inscriptions conveyed meanings understood by foreign traders. If so, some contemporary Akkadian texts referring to Meluhha, thought to be the Indus region, may contain clues to the script's phonetics and semantics. But without direct quotations of Indus words, the trail quickly goes cold. Complicating matters further is the lack of any surviving Indus manuscripts. Unlike Egypt's tomb inscriptions or Mesopotamia's clay tablets, the humid river plains of the Indus subcontinent proved a hostile environment for organic writing materials like palm leaves or bark. All that remains are these miniature stone and metal records, fragmentary windows into an otherwise invisible literary tradition. Despite nearly a century of intensive study, every proposed decipherment, from semantic grids to artificial presses, has failed to gain consensus. Some claim to have cracked the code, only to see their theories unravel under peer review. Meanwhile, new discoveries at smaller sites like Dalavira and Rakagari occasionally add fresh signs or novel sign combinations, reminding us that the corpus remains incomplete. What keeps scholars awake at night isn't just the desire to read ancient poetry or administrative ledgers. It's the hope that unlocking this script will reshape our understanding of the Indus civilization's social structure, religious beliefs, and interactions with its neighbors. A successful decipherment would not only vindicate decades of painstaking excavation, but also breathe life into silent seals, allowing us to hear the voices of craftsmen, priests, and traders who lived over 4,000 years ago. If this riddle of signs and symbols has captured your imagination, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and share your own theory in the comments. Next time, we'll journey to the turbulent waters of the Late Bronze Age to confront mystery number 4. What is the real identity of the sea peoples who reshaped the ancient Mediterranean? Picture the Mediterranean in chaos. Proud coastal cities aflame, trade networks severed, entire kingdoms buckling under a wave of maritime invaders. Around 1200 BCE, a confederation of seafaring raiders, whom the Egyptians collectively dubbed the Sea Peoples, swept ashore from the western waters, leaving ruin from Ugarit to the Nile Delta. Yet despite their seismic impact on the ancient world, we still don't know who they really were. Did they hail from the Aegean, driven by drought and social upheaval in Mycenaean Greece? Or were they Cretans fleeing the volcanic aftermath on Thera? Perhaps they were Western Anatolian clans uprooted by Hittite collapse, or Sicilian and Sardinian mariners seeking new lands. Inscriptions and reliefs at Medinet Habu depict them in bizarre headdresses featuring feathered helmets, horned crowns, and plumed caps, wielding round shields and short swords. But art can tell us only so much. What lies beneath these stylized images is a tangle of ethnic identities, migrations, and opportunistic alliances that confound modern scholars. Our earliest clue comes from the inscriptions of Ramses III, who in his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu boasts of repelling a massive sea people's fleet in 1177 BCE. Carved into the stone are naval battle scenes depicting Egyptian ships ramming enemy vessels and foreign warriors flung into the surf. Lists of enemies include names like the Shurden, Shikalesh, Peleset, Checker, and Denyen, groups whose linguistic roots hint at Sardinia, Sicily, the Philistines, and possibly the Danans of Homeric fame. Yet no corresponding records survive in their supposed homelands to confirm these links. Hittite archives offer partial corroboration. Letters from Ugarit lament the approach of the people of the sea, while a Hittite king's clay tablet warns of coastal towns deserted in panic. At Ugarit itself, the port city was sacked, its palace burned to the ground. Archaeologists uncovered collapsed walls, charred debris, and broken pottery, evidence of a swift, violent takeover. But the invaders did not settle permanently in most of these sites. They moved on, pillaged, and vanished, leaving local elites to rebuild fractured societies from the ashes. One of the most enduring questions is whether the Sea Peoples represented a single migratory wave or multiple, successive groups converging on the eastern Mediterranean. Some historians argue for a push model in which the collapse of Mycenaean palaces, due to internal warfare and climate stress, propelled displaced warriors into maritime raiding. Others favor a pull scenario in which the weakening of central powers like Egypt under Merneptah and the Hittite Empire beset by internal revolts created opportunities for opportunists from across the sea. Genetic and isotopic analyses of human remains at Philistine sites like Ashkelon reveal Aegean dietary signatures and mitochondrial haplotypes similar to Mycenaean populations, suggesting at least some group migrations into Canaan during this period. Perhaps the greatest enigma is the lack of any self-referential texts. Unlike the Egyptians and Hittites, the Sea Peoples left no monuments proclaiming victories or detailing origins. Their own voices are silent, heard only through the slanted records of those they attacked. This forces scholars to read between the lines, matching fragmentary material culture, such as distinctive belt buckles and unique fibula designs, to the names etched on pharaohs' walls. Every new discovery, be it a seal impression in Ugarit or a tomb in Sardinia, adds a puzzle piece, yet the complete portrait remains elusive. Recent breakthroughs in underwater archaeology have begun to shed fresh light. In 2015, divers off the coast of Dor, ancient Tal el-Milad, uncovered a cache of bronze weapons, a possible Sea People's armory lost overboard during a naval skirmish. Metallurgical analysis indicates the swords and javelin heads were crafted from Anatolian ores, hinting at supply networks stretching from central Turkey to the Levant. Meanwhile, satellite imaging has revealed linear fortifications along the Syrian coast that may date to the early 12th century BCE, defensive measures erected in anticipation of maritime raids. Still, every lead branches into new mysteries. Did the Shurden return to Sardinia, bringing with them Eastern motifs that influenced Nuragic architecture? Are the Denyen ancestors of the Danaan spoken of in later Hebrew texts? Could climate factors such as droughts have synchronized disparate migrations into a single, unstoppable force? What's incontestable is that the Sea People's onslaught marked the twilight of the Bronze Age world. Palatial centers fell, long-distance trade routes fractured, and a centuries-long Dark Age descended upon Greece and Anatolia. Yet from this collapse emerged the foundations of the Iron Age civilizations of the Phoenicians, Neo-Hittites, and early Greeks who would reshape the Mediterranean landscape. So, who were the Sea Peoples? The answer likely lies not in a single location, but in a convergence of societies uprooted by ecological stress, political strife, and the lure of Egypt's legendary wealth. Until an indigenous inscription is found, we can only follow the echoes they left behind, piece together their story from the ruins, and marvel at how nameless seafarers could wield such transformative power. If this tempest of history has stirred your curiosity, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next voyage into the unknown. In our upcoming episode, we'll sail toward mystery number 5. What is the fate and location of Cleopatra's tomb? Imagine the final resting place of history's most famous queen, an icon of power, passion, and intrigue, lying hidden beneath layers of silt, shifting sands, or seawater for more than 2 millennia. When Cleopatra VII Philopator allegedly took her own life in August of 30 BCE, Roman sources record that Octavian granted her the honor of a royal burial alongside Mark Antony. Yet despite references from Plutarch, Strabo, and Cassius Dio to a grand mausoleum near the royal palace in Alexandria, archaeologists have never definitively unearthed her tomb. Ancient texts place the royal quarter on a peninsula now submerged under Alexandria's eastern harbor. Over centuries, earthquakes, especially the devastating quake of 365 CE, tsunamis, and Nile-borne sediments have reshaped the coastline, swallowing temples, causeways, and possibly the tomb itself beneath as much as 10 meters of water and mud. Modern harbor developments and oil rig drilling have further disturbed the seabed, making underwater exploration both urgent and hazardous. In 2006, archaeologist Kathleen Martinez turned her attention to Taposiris Magna, a temple to Osiris some 45 kilometers west of Alexandria. Here, complex underground galleries, sphinx-lined avenues, Greco-Roman funerary artifacts, and even coins bearing Cleopatra's visage have emerged from the sands. Yet after nearly 2 decades of excavation, no inscribed sarcophagus or human remains have materialized to seal the deal. Back in Alexandria, magnetometer and side-scan sonar surveys have pinpointed circular foundations and column drums lying 10 to 15 meters below the water's surface, consistent with descriptions of a funerary monument. Ground-penetrating radar on dry land beneath parks, playgrounds, and boulevards has revealed voids and wall fragments that may mark buried chambers. But urban infrastructure creates a tangle of false positives, and local regulations severely limit deep trenching in densely populated neighborhoods. Complicating matters further, successive rulers pillaged Ptolemaic buildings for their stone. Roman, Byzantine, Arab, and Ottoman builders all repurposed marble, limestone, and granite for new palaces, mosques, and fortifications. The original stones of Cleopatra's tomb may have been quarried away centuries ago, leaving only negative spaces or secondary foundation courses to betray its outline. Scholars now envision a multi-pronged approach to break the stalemate. Targeted underwater excavations in the harbor's northwest quadrant using remotely operated vehicles to core sample sediments. Drone-mounted LiDAR surveys over the ancient peninsula to detect subtle bathymetric and topographic anomalies. And renewed epigraphic hunts for stray Greek or Demotic inscriptions in lesser-known temple precincts. Even a single line of graffiti, such as Queen Cleopatra lies here, could redirect decades of research. Until such a discovery, the tomb remains one of the world's greatest archaeological enigmas. Will it surface from beneath Alexandria's silted depths, emerge from a hidden gallery at Taposiris Magna, or forever elude our spades and scanners? The search is as much a battle against nature's transformations as it is against time itself. If this quest for a lost queen has captivated you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next journey. In the upcoming episode, we'll explore mystery number 6. What is the original function of Stonehenge, and how were its massive stones transported? Perched atop the windswept Salisbury Plain, Stonehenge stands as an enduring testament to prehistoric ingenuity. Yet its true purpose, and the methods by which Neolithic builders hauled bluestones from Wales and massive sarsens from nearby quarries, remains shrouded in mystery. In this segment, we'll journey from the rolling hills of West Wales to the chalklands of Wiltshire, examining the latest theories on why Stonehenge was erected and how its builders accomplished an engineering feat that would challenge even modern crews. Construction at Stonehenge unfolded in several phases between roughly 3000 and 1500 BCE. The earliest phase established a circular earthwork and 56 pits, dubbed the Aubrey Holes, which may have held wooden posts or small stones. By 2600 BCE, builders had erected the iconic Sarsen Circle and trilithons, linteled pairs of 20 to 30-ton sandstone blocks quarried just 20 miles to the north at Marlborough Downs. Yet it was the arrival of the 4 to 5-ton Preseli bluestones, transported some 150 miles from the Preseli Hills of Pembrokeshire, that truly astonishes. How did a farming community without wheeled vehicles, draft animals, or metal tools move these stones across mountain, river, and estuary? One prevailing transport theory envisions a mixed water and land route. Bluestones were trimmed to roughly cuboid shapes at their Welsh outcrops, then loaded onto timber sledges or rafts. During spring tides, rafts may have floated up the River Avon and its tributaries. Once ashore, teams of 50 to 100 people could drag the stones on wooden rollers or greased tracks. Experimental archaeology in the 1990s demonstrated that a crew of 50 could move a 5-ton stone on a sledge, but replicating the full 150-mile journey would have required seasonal coordination, specialized labor groups, and logistical camps along the route. Alternative theories propose entirely overland treks on sophisticated stone boats, fitted with wooden runners and winched by ropes. Recent analysis of prehistoric trackways in West Wales suggests purpose-built pathways, laid with split oak planks to protect boggy ground. Ice Age waterways may also have offered natural corridors. Glacial melt channels could have eased river navigation or provided frozen surfaces in winter, enabling sleigh-like movement across marsh. Yet transport pales in significance compared to Stonehenge's potential functions. Astronomical alignments are unmistakable. The heel stone and avenue align with the midsummer sunrise. The central axis marks the midwinter sunset. This suggests rituals marking solstices, perhaps tied to agricultural calendars or ancestor worship. The discovery of human remains in the ditch and pits points to a funerary or commemorative role. Some scholars propose that Stonehenge formed part of a circuit of monuments, connecting with Doington Walls where timber houses for the living stood, and Woodhenge where additional rituals may have occurred. Intriguingly, isotope analysis of bluestone fragments indicates many were quarried at Carn Godog and Carn Menin, sites with their own prehistoric cairns and possible ceremonial significance. Could the stones themselves have been sacred relics, carrying ancestral or healing powers to Wiltshire? Folk memories of healing springs in Wales persist around these hills, and some early antiquarians recorded local legends of sacred stones revered for their mystical properties. Recent geophysical surveys have revealed buried anomalies extending the monument's footprint far beyond the visible stones. Hidden ditches, pits filled with antler picks, and timber post holes form concentric rings, suggesting that Stonehenge was just one node in a vast ritual landscape. Seasonal gatherings may have drawn diverse communities from across Britain and beyond, forging social bonds through shared ceremonies. Despite decades of excavation, every new find, be it a polished axe head, a broken arrowhead, or a fragment of pottery, adds nuance but seldom resolves the core enigma. Was Stonehenge a pilgrimage site for ancestral commemoration, an astronomical observatory for calendar keeping, a healing sanctuary for the afflicted, or all of the above? And did the journey itself constitute a rite of passage or a statement of communal identity? Until the day we unearth an inscribed tablet or decipher a contemporaneous record, Stonehenge's heart will remain silent, its stones speaking only in solstice shadows and the echoes of ancient feet. If this glimpse into Neolithic ambition intrigued you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Next time, we'll explore mystery number 7. What caused the disappearance of the Minoan civilization? Picture a flourishing Bronze Age culture with palatial centers at Knossos, Phaistos, and Malea, complex trade networks stretching to Egypt and Anatolia, vibrant frescoes celebrating bull leaping and ritual feasts, suddenly destroyed by a cataclysmic volcanic blast. Around 1600 BCE, the island of Thera, modern Santorini, exploded with an intensity rivaling Krakatoa, sending plumes of ash high into the stratosphere and unleashing tsunamis that radiated across the eastern Mediterranean. Yet exactly how this event contributed to the decline and ultimate disappearance of the Minoan civilization on Crete remains hotly debated. In the months following the eruption, thick ashfall coated coastal settlements, collapsing roofs and contaminating freshwater supplies. Tsunami waves would have slammed into eastern Crete within hours, obliterating harbors and wrecking trading vessels. Excavations at Kamos and Akrotiri reveal sudden destruction, but Crete's situation is more nuanced. Palaces show signs of fire and subsequent rebuilding, and frescoes were buried under plaster. Linear A tablets stop abruptly, yet there's no clear evidence of a single catastrophic event that caused widespread collapse. One school of thought argues that the eruption triggered wide-scale famine and social upheaval. Ruined harvests, disease outbreaks, and refugee crises overwhelmed the palatial bureaucracies, leading to internal revolt or palace takeover by warrior elites. Ash-laden skies may have cooled the region for years, further straining food resources. Over subsequent generations, Cretan society may have fragmented, losing its maritime hegemony to Mycenaean Greeks who exploited the power vacuum. An alternative view stresses continuity. Minoan culture persisted for centuries after Thera, but gradually melded with mainland Greek influences. Linear B scribes at Knossos record Mycenaean names and administrative terms, suggesting that Mycenaean administrators occupied Cretan palaces as early as 1450 BCE. Rather than total destruction, the palace centers were repurposed under new rulers. Artisans continued to produce ceramics in Minoan styles even as fresh motifs emerged, pointing to an evolving cultural synthesis. Recent underwater surveys off Palicastro have uncovered submerged harbor structures exhibiting signs of tsunami damage, confirming that coastal Cretan towns were hit by at least two major waves. Geoarchaeologists analyzing core samples from coastal lagoons have identified distinct tsunami deposits dated to around 1600 BCE, underscoring the physical trauma inflicted by the sea. Meanwhile, palatial archives show food distributions scaled up immediately after the disaster, indicating organized relief efforts, something more consistent with resilience than total societal collapse. Then there's the question of religion and identity. Some scholars argue that the Minoan worship of bullhorn deities and mother goddess figures may have masked deeper anxieties about cosmic forces unleashed by Thera's eruption. Ritual sites inland show renewed votive activity at precisely this time, suggesting a spiritual reaction to the cataclysm. Did survivors seek divine favor to stabilize the world? What remains undeniable is that by 1200 BCE, the vibrant Bronze Age culture of the Aegean had given way to a new Mycenaean-dominated order. Whether the Minoan decline was swift or drawn out, violent or peaceful, its catalyst was certainly the Thera eruption. But the full story includes environmental disaster, political realignment, cultural adaptation, and human resilience. If this tale of cataclysm and rebirth captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next episode. In that installment, we'll confront mystery number 8. What led to the abandonment of the ancient city of Teotihuacan? Picture a thriving city of over 100,000 people with wide avenues, towering pyramids, and multi-story apartments. Yet by the 7th century CE, the city was mysteriously abandoned, left to decay and overgrow with weeds. Teotihuacan, nestled in the Valley of Mexico, was the largest city in the pre-Columbian Americas, yet by around 650 to 750 CE, its temples lay charred, its murals defaced, and its plazas silent. What cataclysmic combination of factors drove this powerhouse to collapse? At its zenith between 350 and 550 CE, Teotihuacan commanded a vast trade network. Fine obsidian blades flowed southward into Oaxaca. Jaguar pelts and cacao moved north to the Maya lowlands, and exotic goods reached the Gulf Coast. Its priests-kings orchestrated massive public works, including the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Avenue of the Dead. But by 600 CE, evidence shows widespread burning of elite compounds and destruction of sacred murals. These were likely acts of internal revolt or factional infighting rather than foreign invasion. Environmental stress looms large in recent research. Lake-level reconstructions from nearby Chalco and Texcoco indicate a series of severe droughts between 500 and 650 CE, with rainfall deficits as high as 30%. Pollen cores reveal declining maize and bean cultivation, while isotopic analysis of human teeth shows dietary stress in children born during this period. Food shortages likely strained the city's complex redistribution systems, undermining elite legitimacy and fueling popular unrest. Simultaneously, the city's political cohesion may have frayed. Teotihuacan was not ruled by a single monarch, but by a council of noble lineages. Archaeologists have identified signs of rivalry among these families. When drought disrupted tribute and redistribution, competing lineages may have turned on one another, igniting urban violence. Adding to the crisis, seismic activity in the Trans-Mexican volcanic belt may have rocked Teotihuacan. Surveyed fault lines and buried colluvial deposits suggest at least one strong earthquake struck around 600 CE, damaging public buildings and fracturing water canals. Repairing these essential systems under famine conditions would have been daunting, further undermining civic confidence. Yet the abandonment was neither instantaneous nor uniform. Peripheral neighborhoods show gradual depopulation, while core precincts suffered dramatic conflagrations, possibly symbolic acts of ritual decommissioning by disgruntled elites. By 750 CE, only small farming hamlets dotted the ruins, and by the time the Nawa arrived in the 13th century, Teotihuacan's glory had become legend. The interplay of environmental collapse, social fragmentation, and possibly seismic shocks paints a picture of a civilization unraveling from within. No single cause suffices. Drought starved the city, factional rivalries turned lethal, and natural disasters delivered final blows. Yet even in its downfall, Teotihuacan shaped successor societies. The Toltecs and Aztecs revered its pyramids and inherited elements of its religion, ensuring that this city of the gods remained alive in memory long after its streets fell silent. If this tale of rise and fall stirred your curiosity, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next episode. Up next, mystery number 9. What is the location of King Solomon's legendary mines and wealth? Imagine a kingdom overflowing with wealth, gold, silver, and precious jewels, all at the disposal of a legendary biblical king known for his wisdom and grandeur. King Solomon of Israel, reigning in the 10th century BCE, is said to have amassed wealth so vast that ships returning from distant lands carried gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks to his palace in Jerusalem. Yet despite centuries of fascination, the true locations of Solomon's fabled mines and trading posts remain elusive. According to the Hebrew Bible, Solomon's fleet set sail from Ezion-Geber on the Red Sea, voyaged to the port of Ophir, and returned laden with precious cargo every 3 years. Where was Ophir? Scholars have proposed sites ranging from southwestern Arabia to East Africa, and even India's western coast. In Saudi Arabia, the ancient gold mine of Mahad ad-Dahab, which literally means cradle of gold, has produced veins known since antiquity. Its proximity to the Red Sea and ample gold production make it a strong candidate for Solomon's sources. Yet no inscriptions link it directly to Israelite expeditions. Further southwest, the Kingdom of Punt, likely situated along modern Eritrea or Somalia, supplied incense, ivory, and exotic wildlife to pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Egyptian records describe Puntite expeditions around 1500 BCE. Centuries later, Israelite traders may have accessed the same Red Sea routes. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient port facilities at Wadi Gawassis in Egypt, hinting at a well-established maritime corridor. Could Solomon's ships have followed these channels, pausing at coastal hubs before venturing to interior mines? Peripheral sites in modern Sudan and Ethiopia also contain gold-bearing quartz veins exploited in antiquity. However, the sheer distance and lack of clear biblical or archaeological markers make these candidates speculative. Back in the Arabian Peninsula, the rich copper and turquoise mines of the Timna Valley, often dubbed the King Solomon's Mines by early explorers, offer intriguing clues. Egyptian New Kingdom reliefs depict mining activity there in the 14th century BCE, and local Bedouin legends later attributed the mines to Solomon. Recent excavations have confirmed iron smelting operations in the Iron Age, suggesting the valley remained important for centuries. But while copper and turquoise were undoubtedly valuable, they do not explain the biblical emphasis on gold. Complicating the quest is the likelihood that Solomon's wealth derived not from a single mine, but from a network of trade partnerships and tribute payments. His empire likely leveraged diplomatic alliances like marriage to the daughter of Egypt's pharaoh, for example, to secure access to foreign resources. Local chieftains in Transjordan, southern Arabia, and the Negev may have delivered gold and precious goods as tribute, funneling vast sums into the royal treasury. Geochemical analyses of gold artifacts from the late Iron Age Levant have attempted to match trace element signatures with known ore deposits, but results remain inconclusive. Each nugget or bracelet carries only a handful of diagnostic isotopes, and centuries of recycling have mixed sources beyond clear distinction. Today's explorers, archaeologists, historians, and hobbyists alike continue to comb ancient caravan routes, survey mountain springs where nugget-rich placers might concentrate, and re-examine old mining shafts with ground-penetrating radar. Yet, until an inscription unambiguously credits Solomon's agents or a hoard of artifacts bearing his seal emerges in situ, the mines of Ophir will remain as tantalizing as the king's legendary wisdom. If this search for unimaginable wealth has sparked your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next journey. In our upcoming episode, we'll tackle mystery number 10. Where is Alexander the Great's tomb? Imagine tracing the footsteps of history's greatest conqueror, Alexander the Great, only to arrive at a mausoleum lost to time, its whereabouts debated for over 2,000 years. When Alexander died in Babylon in June 323 BCE, his generals vied for control of his empire and even his corpse, believing that possession of his body conferred divine legitimacy. Yet, where that body ultimately came to rest, and whether it still survives today, remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing enigmas. According to ancient accounts, Alexander's embalmed corpse was first placed in a golden sarcophagus in Babylon. Perdiccas, the regent, initially planned to inter him there, but Ptolemy I seized the funeral cortege en route to halt at Memphis. Egyptian priests rewrapped the body in sacred cedar oil and honey, then paraded it in Ptolemy's chariot to Alexandria, founding a cult of Alexander as a living god. For centuries, pilgrims flocked to his tomb in the royal quarter, marveling at its gilded exterior and offerings of incense, garlands, and precious gifts. Strabo, writing in the early 1st century CE, describes a grand mausoleum on the eastern harbor, ornately decorated and staffed by priests who maintained the cult. The young Julius Caesar is said to have visited and laid a wreath upon it. Augustus reportedly did the same. By the 3rd century CE, however, references grow scant. A devastating earthquake in 365 CE and subsequent tsunamis reshaped Alexandria's coastline, and Christian emperors suppressed pagan cults, leading to the tomb's likely closure and gradual decay. Over the centuries, dozens of locations have been proposed. In Alexandria, archaeologists have surveyed the Qam el-Dika district, the Ras el-Tin Palace, and the submerged royal quarter off Eastern Harbor. Side-scan sonar has revealed rectangular foundations and column bases beneath the waves, possible remnants of monumental buildings. But distinguishing Alexander's tomb from contemporaneous Ptolemaic structures is challenging without inscriptions or diagnostic artifacts. Some scholars argue that the site at Taposiris Magna, which is also linked to Cleopatra, could hide Alexander's remains. Excavations led by Kathleen Martinez have uncovered vaulted burial chambers and Hellenistic inscriptions invoking a divine king, but no definitive Alexandrian seal or skeletal remains bearing signs of embalming have come to light. Another intriguing lead emerges from Siway Oasis in the western desert, where Alexander famously visited the Oracle of Ammon. Local legend tells of a secret valley of shadows where a black stone marks his tomb. Geophysical surveys have detected subterranean cavities beneath the Temple of the Oracle, but exploration is restricted by both remote location and the site's protected status. In modern Greece, the Macedonian royal tombs at Vergina, uncovered in 1977, initially sparked hope. One richly furnished chamber contained the remains of an adult male in his 30s, interred with a gold larnax inscribed only with the Vergina sun. Scholars debated whether this was Philip II, Alexander's father, or Alexander himself. Most now favor Philip's identification, based on weaponry, burial goods, and forensic analyses, but the debate underscores the difficulty of matching historical figures to archaeological finds. Geneticists have even entered the fray. Attempts to extract ancient DNA from purported Alexandrian mummies face contamination and degradation challenges. Without a verified genetic baseline from known relatives, any match remains speculative. Moreover, Ptolemaic rulers frequently intermarried with local nobility, complicating familial lineages. Recent developments in remote sensing offer new hope. Satellite-based multispectral imaging can penetrate shallow subsurface layers to reveal buried walls and roadways that align with ancient urban grids. Combining this with ground-penetrating radar and targeted coring could expose the foundations of a monumental tomb complex. In Alexandria's shifting sediment-rich harbor, underwater LiDAR and autonomous submersibles might finally map the sunken cityscape with precision. Yet, even if we pinpoint Alexander's tomb, the question of his remains looms. Did medieval Vandals and early explorers quarry away the sarcophagus and ossified bones as relics? Were the remains transferred inland into secret caches to protect them during Byzantine iconoclasm or Arab conquest? Or did Alexandria's flooding and subsidence simply consign the body to oblivion, its organic matter dissolved long ago? The enduring allure of this mystery lies in Alexander's mythic stature. His tomb was a symbol of Hellenistic unity, a pilgrimage site uniting Greeks and Egyptians in a shared reverence for a man who bridged cultures. Recovering his final resting place would not only rewrite Alexandrian archaeology, but also reconnect us to the living legacy of a leader whose ambitions reshaped the ancient world. Until that moment arrives, scholars, treasure hunters, and dreamers alike will continue to follow the faint footprints of history, mapping ancient roads, scanning submerged ruins, and deciphering cryptic texts, driven by the hope that one day we might finally stand before Alexander's tomb and hear the echo of his legend whisper at last. If this journey into legend captivated you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into history's unsolved mysteries.